Picture this. You wake up, and it's a gray, just absolutely miserable Tuesday morning.
We've all been there.
Right. And you are staring down the exact same commute you do every single day, drinking the exact same lukewarm cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And you get this sudden sinking feeling in your stomach.
Mm.
It's the realization that your grand, life-changing goals for the year, they're slipping away.
Oh, completely, because it's early March, right?
Exactly. It's early March. And that fiery, unstoppable January motivation you had, it's currently just a tiny flickering candle in the wind.
Barely hanging on.
Barely. You might even feel like you're letting things slide, slipping right back into old routines, and just heading straight down a negative spiral.
Mm.
But if that sounds familiar to you, do not panic, because you are experiencing what is famously known as the March factor.
The dreaded March factor.
Yeah.
It is a very real, extensively documented phenomenon. The initial adrenaline of a new year inevitably wears off, and the reality of daily, unglamorous effort just sets in. Our brains really aren't wired to sustain that high-octane January enthusiasm forever.
No, they're not.
But the good news for you is today is the day we talk about stopping that negative spiral in its tracks. We're going to fundamentally replace it with a sustainable, positive one.
Exactly. Which brings us to today's deep dive. We are digging into an incredibly fascinating piece of source material. We're looking at excerpts from a program called The English Edge, turning language habits into lifestyle success.
Yes.
Our mission today is to pull out the absolute best nuggets of wisdom from this text. We want to help you stop feeling overwhelmed by your own goals, stop being humiliated by your errors, and actually start thriving.
And, we should clarify right up front.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
While the surface level of the source material is specifically targeted at people trying to learn English, the underlying mechanics we're going to discuss are universally applicable.
Absolutely universal.
What we are really looking at here is a masterclass in psychology, self-discipline, and the actual architecture of habit formation. It's about how you approach any monumental task, whether that's learning a language, coding, or writing a book,
Right.
without getting crushed by the sheer weight of your own ambition.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sources highlight a massive trap that almost everyone falls into when trying to learn something new.
The vague goals trap.
Exactly. We set these huge, incredibly vague goals. We say things like, I will improve my accent, or I want to be fluent by December.
Which sounds wonderful.
It sounds great on paper. It looks fantastic on a vision board. But the problem is there's zero action plan attached to that statement. It's a nice aspiration, but it is not an action.
That is precisely the trap. You set a destination without building a map to get there. The solution provided in the text is brilliantly simple, but it requires a complete shift in perspective. Your goals must be defined as actions, not just as end results.
Right.
If you tell yourself, I want to be fluent, your brain genuinely does not know what to do with that abstract concept on a random Tuesday morning when you're tired.
Because it's too big.
Exactly. But if your goal is, I will do 10 minutes of shadowing every day, or I'll write exactly 1 page in my learning diary every time I listen to a podcast.
That's an executable command.
It is. You either did the action or you didn't. There's no gray area.
Wait, so it essentially takes the guesswork out of the daily routine. You aren't waking up and asking yourself the massive question of, how do I become fluent today?
No.
You're just asking the tiny question of, did I do my 10 minutes?
Precisely. You are shrinking the cognitive load. And to anchor this philosophically, the source brings in a brilliant quote from Aristotle.
Oh, I loved this part.
Right. The quote is, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit."
That is so good.
It's crucial when we talk about skill acquisition. A lot of people approach a language or any complex skill the way they might try to memorize the rules of physics or history dates for a written exam.
Just cramming facts.
Yeah, but you cannot just study it passively. You have to physically and mentally do it repeatedly until it becomes a permanent part of your behavioral architecture.
I see. So you are building a muscle, not just filling up a hard drive with beta.
Exactly.
And to help build that daily repetition muscle, the source introduces this 30-day English challenge approach. I found this part really intriguing because it breaks everything down into a weekly rhythm.
Instead of just saying, study every day.
Right. So, for example, Monday is dedicated purely to listening. Tuesday is strictly for speaking. Wednesday is reserved for reading. But why does that specific rhythm actually matter? What's the psychological benefit of locking into a schedule like that?
The psychological benefit of that structure is immense because it solves a major problem with adult learning. Learning a language is largely an invisible cognitive process.
Right, you can't see it happening.
You cannot look in the mirror and physically see your brain forming new neural pathways
Hmm.
the way you can see a bicep growing in the gym.
That'd be pretty weird if you could.
It would be. But by applying a rigid daily structure like the 30-day challenge, you are taking an invisible process and making it visible and trackable.
You're proving to yourself that it's happening.
You are giving yourself a clear framework so that progress can actually be measured day by day. Furthermore, the sequencing makes sense. Listening on Monday primes the auditory pathways so that when Tuesday arrives, your brain is already prepped for the speaking exercises.
But doing all of this day in and day out cannot just be a relentless grind, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
The Force insists that enjoyment is absolutely mandatory. It makes this super relatable comparison to going to the gym. I know for a fact that if I try to force myself to run on a treadmill staring at a blank wall, I will quit by day 4.
Most people do.
Right. But if I join a casual football league with my friends, or if I go for a really long walk in the woods just to get out of the house,
The exercise is a byproduct.
exactly, the exercise becomes a happy consequence of doing something I already enjoy. The exact same logic applies to learning, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The text stresses that you have to find a buzz. You have to find a way to enjoy the process itself, independent of the end goal.
What does that look like in practice?
That might mean listening to engaging audio stories. It could be binge watching Netflix in your target language, or finding a specific podcast that genuinely hooks your interest.
Got it.
If there is no internal reward, no buzz to chase, the habit simply will not sustain itself over the long term. Willpower is a heavily finite resource. You will run out of it. Enjoyment is what carries you through the weeks and months when willpower depletes.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We constantly tell ourselves that we simply do not have the time to find this buzz or to build these new habits. We're all busy.
Of course.
But the source introduces this brilliant concept of transforming dead time into found time. And it specifically targets the one part of the day we all universally dread, the daily commute.
The commute is the ultimate untapped resource for adult learners. Think about how much time people spend just staring blankly at the back of the seat in front of them.
Or mindlessly scrolling through stressful news on their phones.
Exactly. The source provides some great real-world evidence of learners reclaiming this time. There is a learner named Kat from the US who relies on the subway to get to work.
Mm-hmm.
She specifically uses her 15-minute journey solely to read in her target language. Then there is Mark in London, who does the exact same thing on the tube every single morning.
When you first hear 15 minutes, it really does not sound like a lot. It sounds almost too small to make a difference.
It does sound small, but when you do the math, the compounding effect is staggering. 15 minutes each way on a commute is 30 minutes a day of found time.
Right.
That translates to 2.5 hours a work week, roughly 10 hours a month, or over 120 hours a year of dedicated life-changing practice.
Wow. Over 120 hours.
And the most beautiful part is that this is entirely built out of time that you were previously just throwing away. You are fundamentally changing your life and acquiring a massive new skill without actually adding a single new hour to your already busy schedule.
So we have figured out how to find the time during our commute, and we know we need to find a way to enjoy it. But what exactly are we supposed to be doing during those 15 minutes on the subway or the bus to get the maximum benefit?
Right.
The source brings in an amazing practical tip from an English teacher named Vanessa that directly addresses this. How does she approach making this time efficient?
Vanessa focuses on conversational realism. A major issue learners face is that they study formal textbooks during their found time.
Which makes them sound like robots.
Exactly. They sound incredibly stiff when they actually try to speak. Instead of having a learner rigidly stand up and announce, "I must leave now," she suggests teaching them what native speakers actually say in the real world.
Which is...
Simply, "I gotta run," or "I gotta go."
Yes. And she even gives a really specific pronunciation pro tip for American English that I thought was fascinating. She points out that native speakers don't enunciate the T's perfectly in that phrase.
Right, it's not got to.
No, you pronounce it much closer to a soft D. Like,
Mhm.
gotta, I gotta run. It's such a tiny, seemingly insignificant tweak. But mastering these quick and easy phrases builds massive, real-world confidence.
It does.
It gives the learner that instant feeling of, gotcha, I know how people actually talk.
That feeling of gotcha is crucial for momentum, but the mechanics of how you actually get your brain to that point of natural fluency are also detailed in the text. It centers heavily on a linguistic concept known as shadowing.
Okay.
The source argues that listening is the ultimate delivery system for a language.
Okay, but what does shadowing actually look like in practice
Yeah.
for our listener? If I'm on my commute, am I just passively listening to a podcast while I walk to my office, or is shadowing more intensive than that?
It is much more active than passive listening. Shadowing literally means playing a piece of audio from a native speaker and trying to speak out loud over it, slightly behind the speaker.
Literally shadowing them.
Yes, mimicking their exact pitch, intonation, and rhythm. The principle is that auditory input leaves a phonetic and structural imprint on your brain. You are training your mouth muscles to move in sequences they aren't used to.
Makes sense.
That imprint is what eventually surfaces naturally when you speak in an unscripted conversation. You must absorb the sound and physically mimic it before you can effectively reproduce it on your own.
That is a huge paradigm shift. So you cannot just read a word on a page and logically deduce how to say it naturally in a fast-paced conversation.
Yeah.
You have to hear it, let the melody sink in, and physically try to match the rhythm.
What's fascinating here is how this auditory, mimicry-based approach ties directly into the source's stance on perfection.
Oh, this is a big one.
The pursuit of perfection is actually a massive hindrance to progress in adult learning. Perfection in spoken language or in almost any complex human endeavor simply does not exist.
Right.
The text kindly reminds us that even native speakers make grammatical errors all the time. They stumble over their words, they use improper syntax, and they lose their train of thought.
That is honestly so freeing to hear.
It should be. If your goal is grammatical perfection, you will be paralyzed by the fear of making a mistake. You won't open your mouth.
You'll just freeze up.
Exactly. The ultimate goal, as the source clearly states, should always be making effective connections with other people. If you successfully communicate your thought to another human being, even with a flawed accent or a misplaced verb, you have succeeded in the core purpose of language.
The goal isn't to pass a rigid grammar test. It's to connect with another human being.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful way to look at it. But let's be real for a second and bring it back down to earth.
Sure.
We're talking about all these great proactive strategies.
Yeah.
Shadowing, finding the buzz, reclaiming dead time on the commute, letting go of perfection. But what happens when normal, chaotic life just violently kicks in?
It always does.
You get a terrible cold, your kids get sick, your boss hands you a massive project, and suddenly that structured motivation just vanishes. The source uses that classic proverb: you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. A teacher can give you all the podcasts, the shadowing techniques, and the schedules in the world, but when your alarm goes off at 6 a.m. on a freezing morning, you are the one who has to actually drag yourself out of bed.
And that brings us right back to the crux of the March factor we discussed at the very beginning of this deep dive.
Full circle.
Motivation is ultimately just an emotion, and emotions are inherently fleeting. Resilience is what you need to cultivate for when the emotion inevitably disappears.
How do we do that?
The source provides a very comforting yet highly practical synthesis for avoiding that negative spiral when life interrupts your perfectly laid plans. The rule they lay out is astonishingly simple. If you miss a day, or even 3 days, do not beat yourself up.
Because guilt is just another roadblock, right?
Exactly. Do not engage in heavy self-criticism because that emotional flagellation only drains the cognitive energy you desperately need to start again.
So what's the alternative?
Instead of agonizing over the lost days, just do one single thing the next day.
Just one tiny thing, even if it is just a 5-minute podcast while brushing your teeth or writing one sentence in a journal.
Precisely. The goal isn't to make up for lost time. The goal is to reset the momentum immediately. You need to view the effort not as an all-or-nothing pass or fail test, but as a stepping stone. Every tiny action, no matter how small, is a stepping stone leading toward your ideal day 5 years from now.
Speaking of that ideal day in 5 years, this brings us to what I think is the ultimate mental hack in this entire deep dive. It is a specific writing task from the 30-day challenge that the source details, and it's called the Unreal Present.
This is a powerful one.
The prompt the source asks you to sit down and answer is this: how would your life be different if you hadn't started learning English?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the unreal present is an incredibly powerful psychological tool built on the concept of loss aversion.
Loss aversion.
Behavioral economics shows us that human beings are often far more motivated by the visceral fear of losing something valuable than they are by the hopeful prospect of gaining something new.
That makes total sense.
By asking you to deeply visualize your life without the skill you're trying to build, The source forces you to confront the tangible loss of value.
Let's actually workshop that for a second to see how it feels, because it paints a genuinely scary picture.
Yeah.
If you sit down and imagine this unreal present, you might realize that without pushing through the hard days of learning, you wouldn't be qualified for your current job.
Right.
You might realize you wouldn't have the confidence to travel the world independently. You might literally have fewer friends in your life because you wouldn't be able to communicate with the amazing people you've met outside your native circle.
And arriving at that realization is a massive psychological motivator. When you feel the March factor creeping in, when you feel yourself wanting to let things slide for a week, stepping into that unreal present acts as an anchor.
It really does.
Vividly imagining the concrete opportunities, the career advancements, and the human relationships you would be actively erasing from your future is often enough of a shock to jolt you out of your complacency. It takes the abstract, somewhat boring value of doing a daily habit and makes it highly tangible and deeply personal.
It completely shifts your perspective. You go from groaning, ugh, I have to do my shadowing practice today, to realizing, wow, by doing this right now, I am actively protecting my future career and my future friendships.
That's a brilliant reframe.
So as we come to the end of our deep dives today, we want to give you a final push out the door. We are issuing the source's official challenge question for the day, which is directly inspired by our favorite teacher, Vanessa. Where do you got to run to later?
It is a great, simple exercise to implement immediately.
It really is. We want you to seriously think about that specific question in English. While you are walking to your car or sitting on the bus or folding your laundry today, treat today as a test of your level on day 0. Sink your teeth into a brand new challenge. Use the momentum of this deep dive to completely turn over a new leaf.
To frame this final push, I think it is highly appropriate to bring in a powerful piece of wisdom quoted directly in the text, originally from Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it's done.
Such a great quote.
Whatever monumental goal you are looking at right now, whether it is mastering a new language, securing a new career path, or something else entirely, the distance between where you are today and where you want to be seems completely impossible. But action by action, found minute by found minute on the subway, it simply becomes done.
So what does this all mean? It means you have the power to stop the negative spiral today. Just by finishing this deep dive and engaging with these ideas, you have already proven that you have the curiosity and the dedication to improve. The source officially awards its readers their mental 100 points for the day and hands out a mental medal for their effort. But honestly, framing it more maturely, what that really means is recognizing your own agency.
Yes.
It's about acknowledging that you are putting in the work so you don't just blindly blend in with the next year. You have the psychological tools, the 30-day structures, and the shadowing techniques to make this year entirely different from the last.
And to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over as you go about your day, take that incredible concept of the unreal present that we just unpacked and apply it to another difficult skill in your life that you have been actively putting off.
Ooh, I like this.
Maybe it is learning to code, or getting comfortable with public speaking, or finally sitting down and understanding your personal finances. Imagine your life 5 years from right now without having mastered that crucial skill. Look around at the landscape of that unreal present. What specific career opportunities, what financial freedoms, and what human connections are you actively choosing to miss out on by deciding not to start today?
Wow. That is definitely a heavy and motivating thought to chew on during the commute home.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of habit and language. Remember to stick to the plan, don't let things slide when the March factor hits, and we will catch you next time.
Take care and keep moving forward.